welcome to Drinks Coach. It's me, Joe Wadsack. Yes, slightly different setup today for various reasons. Vinesack. Contact me on @VINESACK if you have any questions. An email came across my desk last week from the lovely burgers of Cube Communications in Wimbledon, the company which I was very heavily involved in and was one of the founding directors of. And they look after the PR for Tesco. And they said, did you know, Joe, that the 17th of April is International Malbec Day? I didn't. Do now. And they asked if I'd like to try some wines from the Tesco's lineup. And I noticed that there were 4 wines from 4 different countries, all under a tenner, all Malbecs. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun just to taste them, to talk about Malbec in general, stuff that I know, stuff I don't know, decide which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like, to camera. In a nice, quick, kind of timely fashion. So we've got a 2024 Malbec from Western Cape of South Africa. We have Tesco's finest Cahors from Malbec, which is Cahors has been the southwest of France, the black country wines of France. Then we have a Mendoza Malbec. Well, we all know about Argentine Malbec and what the great success it's been. And then those are all Tesco's finest, but one branded wine, a brand that most of you may be familiar with, you should be. It's the world's biggest wine brand now, in fact, and it never ceases to amaze me. Actually, a lot of those brands never cease to amaze me how well made they actually are. And this is a Chilean Malbec from Cahors del Diablo, along with brands such as Jacob's Creek, still making really proper wine that ages in the bottle, that's proper. Don't be critical of them unless you know. Some of them less good, but certainly Jacob's Creek and Cahors are brands which I still consider to be making proper wine for people. Okay, so let's start with this. Malbec, Western Cape, 2024. Apparently it's nice with red meats and tomato-based pasta dishes, just so you know. With dark cherry, plum, blackberry flavours, well-structured wine finishes with elegant spice hints. Does it now? Oh, fantastic. I can't actually see who the producer of this wine is. It could be one of many people. But it looks like it's bottled in Ireland for Tesco. So Malbec, why is Malbec so popular? Have you really stopped to think, is there a reason? Because it seems to me that Malbec took over where Australian Shiraz left off. And I think there's a reason for this. Malbec is a grape variety which has a couple of things which are unusual or unique. Number one, it comes from a bunch of grapes which is very tightly packed, like a brain, like a real dense cluster of grapes, where other varieties like Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, dangle freely and there's air between the grapes, which in many cases means that the grapes are kept fresher by wind running through the bunches, and also it cools down the temperature of the skins in hot weather. So the clusters, the grapes that grow like a big kind of fist, like Malbec, and the other famous one that does that is Primitivo / Zinfandel. I think you can kind of see a similarity in styles there, can't we? Produce these wines that have got lovely baked compote fruit. And I think it's because they get incredibly hot. And the skins and the sort of subcutaneous layers of the grapes protect the grapes by cooking and taking the hit of all that heat in these very, very high temperature environments, not necessarily just high temperature, maybe high altitude, UBV, big levels of radiation, keeping the seeds intact inside. The other thing is that Malbec can come from quite cool climates, where it's called Cotte in the Loire Valley. Well, I mean, would you believe it? I think some people are really surprised to know that it can even ripen in a climate like that, or Malbec in Bordeaux, or Malbec in Cahors in the southwest of France. Well, the reason why it has such a broad range of climatic districts in which it can thrive is, along with a few other varieties, one I can think of is Zweigelt in Austria, it doesn't produce methoxypyrazine, or at least it produces very, very small levels of it. Methoxypyrazine is a chemical which makes green things taste green. It's what vine makes on the vine tomatoes smell like they came off the vine. It's the smell of that stick in the middle, essentially. It's the smell of broken bracken, the smell of nettles, the smell of mown grass, the smell of snapping a piece of asparagus in half, the smell of green capsicum bell peppers, not red peppers, but green peppers. That's methoxypyrazine, in fact, 2,4-methoxypyrazine. because Malbec doesn't produce much of it, you can pick the grapes very, very young, in a very early in warm climates, produce a much fresher, tangier, brighter style. Or to put it another way, you don't need as much sunshine to produce a palatable result. Don't know if any of you knew that or not, but I thought it was interesting. Okay, so now this wine is coming from 2024. 24 was a very difficult vintage actually in South Africa. They don't have difficult vintages that often because it's usually so hot as a country that even in cool years they can produce quite nice wine. But there are areas of extreme cold in the south, Cape Agulhas, around to Constantia and places like that, where you get very green leafy wines in general. 2024 was very cold. It was rainy. Some white wines didn't even ripen particularly, and there's a lot of dilution in some of the wines due to rain. But as I've mentioned, because you don't have those chemicals which signify that the grapes are unripe in this wine, you can still make a decent result. So I'm smelling red currants, smelling an inkiness to it. Goodness me. I certainly wouldn't have known this was from the New World, not from a country as hot as South Africa. Had I tasted this blind, it's got fairly elevated acidity, like red currants almost. Gosh, it's not a million miles actually away from English wine in some ways, like an English Pinot Noir from the Crouch Valley in Essex, which have lovely textures and silky red fruits, but they have a real tang to them. What do I think of that? Well, actually, it's not like Malbec that we know, Jim. It's kind of more, almost tastes Italian, where you've got this kind of bitter, sweet, sour fruit, sour cherries, like a baby Barbera, maybe a little Sangiovese. I think this would go really, really well with things like a bit of roast beef sandwich, maybe sausage sandwich. Other things would I drink Italian food? Oh, great, probably with chicken liver pate, something like that. But really, it's not the gutsy, super powerful, supercharged fruity wine that we all associate Malbec, certainly Argentinian Malbec, with. So it just shows you there's a huge plethora of styles. So that's the first one. Right, we're already 7 minutes in. I'm going to crack on with this. This is Cahors Malbec. This wine is, I think it's like £8. It's something laughably inexpensive. And it's been really, really good in the past. It comes from the producer Regal, which produces very high quality wines in the Malbec, in the Cahors area, which is about a 2-hour drive inland from Bordeaux. There's also from 2022, which was a stunning vintage in Bordeaux and surrounding areas, and this part of France. One of the best vintages maybe ever. And I'm very curious to see what Maison Regal have managed to do in this vintage for so little money. But where the first wine was unbelievably light of touch for a South African wine, this is probably the other way, and hopefully will show some signs of real concentration. And it's not that cold in the southwest of France, is it? Okay, so looking at the colour, it's got a lovely, vivid red colour, not quite as deep as it was in the first wine. Mm. So we're away from red currants. We're more in the realm of plum and damson. Mm. Oh, it's inky. There's no complexity really here to mess about with. For those people that have seen my shows about Cahors in the past, and a barbecue with some beautiful Cahors wines a couple of years ago, if you look through the YouTube back catalogue, and I think that Cahors has the capability of really taking Bordeaux by the short and curlies and producing wines which at 20 or 30 pounds taste like 50 or 60 pound Bordeaux wines. And they age for a very long time. They're fantastic quality. And I think they're about to have their time. Interest in Cahors is certainly growing. But this is a simple stainless steel produced wine. Maybe there's some old staves in there or something, but there isn't the complexity of a fine Bordeaux. This is like a jugging, like easy by the glass of luncheon claret that you might get in a bistro in the middle of Bordeaux in France. It's bloody delicious. I think it's absolutely fantastic. These are a couple of nice lamb chops off the barbecue, and you're well away. Bright, fresh, but it has lovely silky fruit characters, as you'd expect from Malbec. Let's move on to the one that we know and love. This is Mendoza Malbec, where, for those people who don't know the geography of Mendoza, Mendoza is itself a city, quite a distance away from Buenos Aires, but a high altitude. So you have incredible sunshine but fairly cooling influences from cold air drainage, from cold air racing down the hills. And some of the highest vineyards in the world are right up in Guadalcanal, in parts of Mendoza and Tupungato. Vino Argentino Bebida Nacional from Bodegas Catena. Now, Catena is a name to be wrestled with. Catena Alta, Nicholas Catena, 2001, was one of the best red wines I've ever drunk. So this is kind of contract everyday wine made by one of the real kind of powerhouses of premium wine in Argentina. And I've got this lovely Tesco finest capsules. I like this. So what vintage is this? 2022. So this is a vintage comparison with the Cahors we've just tried, and both of which are a couple of years older than the first one. Bloody hell. That ain't bad at all. Nice bit of leather strap. There's a kind of a suede-y, it's sort of a new belt. There's kind of a seasoned, nutty leatheriness to it. Coating some really nice black fruits, maybe some black plum, some mulberry, juicy, certainly black berries rather than currants. It doesn't have any of that greenness, as I mentioned. Huckleberry, big, juicy blueberries in a pie kind of thing. Fruit sweetness through the middle. There may be tiny little bit of residual sugar there. Not a great deal. It's 13% alcohol, and I think it does really taste quite bone dry. These are both 13% actually. Oh, they're all 13%. That's helpful. Zero wrong with that. Okay, nice and tasty. It's under £10. I'm aware of that. It's around the price of a pint of Guinness in Fulham, as I've told many people recently. It could be a little riper. It could have been cropped a bit lower to make a more serious result. And I imagine if you buy the Cahors del Diablo Malbec made in Argentina, which is called Trevento, you'll find a bit more density and concentration, but certainly a price tag to match. This wine is in the high £7, which I think is ridiculous, mid £7 anyway, not £10, and certainly palatable. Just buy a box of 6 for a barbecue. If your guests aren't that fussy, they'll be very satisfied with those wines. Moving on to the last one. Cahors del Diablo, Chilean Malbec, 2023. So 24, 22, 22, 23. So a little bit of development hopefully here. Only 12.5% alcohol, so I expect there may be a bit of residual sugar here too. And I think it's Thorico. I think this comes from one of the earlier colonized wine valleys of Chile. Thorico is one of the first, and Maule as well. It doesn't really say. It's probably made from bits and bobs all over. Imported to the EU by Conchitoro, Sweden. Dan, Stockholm. Yeah, nice, okay. And this wine is, I think, $9.75 or something like that. A bit lacking in odour, in aroma, I think. A bit flat on the nose. Light, juicy, soft to the touch. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning red currants and sourness, almost English or kind of Loire type flavours. Then went on to the Cahors, showed some more plummy damson flavours. Then we went on to blackberry and altogether riper fruit, more jamminess maybe. Not jamminess per se, but more cooked compote. This one's much more leisurely. It's red fruits rather than black fruits. It's like a red summer pudding. Be perfectly good with a pork chop or something like that would be ideal, or with some sausages. In fact, it's light enough. It would probably go quite well with something like roast turkey or chicken too. There you go. 4 wines, a massive story, loads to see, lots of interest, and you can have the lot for under 40 quid. You can't say better than that, can you? Well done, Tesco's. Interesting. Thanks for sending them to me. Glad I didn't do any research because it was just fun looking at them the way they were. So, which was my favourite? The Cahors. But then again, I do tend to plump for the French these days. See you next time.